to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 681. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. This week, we touch on the topic that is near and dear to my heart, work entry, with an essay titled Prioritization Without Control of Work Entry. I'm tempted to suggest that without control over what you can say yes to, the whole idea of prioritization is a farce. The answer is more complicated, but only a little. We also have a visit from Jeremy Berriault, who brings his QA corner to the cast. This week we discuss measuring testing. It's more than just pass-fail. Jeremy Berriault, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
It is always a pleasure to be here, Tom. Glad to see you and hear you.
Yeah, well, we had trouble with that, didn't we, at the beginning? I could see you. I could hear you, and you couldn't hear me. But we have surmounted all of the problems and all of the different pieces of patch lines laid around this shop. And I am checking the meter occasionally just to make sure. Jeremy, today, testing metrics in Agile. What makes sense? Okay, nothing. No, I'm kidding.
Nothing. Nope, we're done.
I'll edit that out.
Topic over. So with for me, Tom, you've known me for a long time. You know I'm a strong proponent of metrics, regardless of the framework you're using. There's always ways to tell the right story to ensure that you're not only improving and providing value, but you're able to tell that right story to those that need to hear it. If we look at old waterfall type metrics for testing, I know there's plenty of books. I got probably 2 or 3 books somewhere on my shelves, going over those metrics. In Agile, in iterative fashion, like those metrics, most of the metrics you can't use. It just won't make any sense. And I've seen some people use from a leftover, like pass fail. I hate that metric. There's a lot of people I know that hate that metric because pass fail is basically good. You're doing your job. Either you're passing a case or you're failing a case. It doesn't tell the story. But in Agile, it's just a series of different numbers, but you can still provide that understanding of how well a QA team or QA individuals within the team are providing or doing their work. Test case reviews, like identifications, code coverage. There's a few tools out there that do full-on automated code coverage, which is really interesting. And like, if I were to think back when I first started testing, I remember someone bringing up, it's like, oh, what's your code coverage? I've got 20 test cases. I don't know if it's exercising all the code, but I got 20 test cases. So,
and how many should you have had? And how would you have known?
Well, you never know. You can never have too many test cases. Said one executive to me. But yeah, it's really tough to say because each Agile team is different on what they want and what they measure and how to measure. I think there's a basic set, like number of test cases, code coverage, story coverage, acceptance criteria met. One of the metrics that I've used for quality assurance is number of code check-ins. And the code check-ins were not looking at the QA team or QA individual or tester as a whole. It was looking more at the unit testing within the development. If you had a bit of code where there was a lot of code check-ins, then there'd have to be there could be a discussion on how well the unit test was written or if unit testing was even being done to understand that. And I think where things fall within an Agile team is that some of these metrics, it's a team-wide thing. It's not just a tester thing.
Yeah, makes sense. If you had to have 3 or 4 metrics that you would swear by. What's the first one?
The first one would be test case quality.
How do you know that?
Well, through the review process. And I think we've talked about static and dynamic testing. And when we talked about static testing, a lot of it was based on review of the codes or review of the stories. Well, it also applies to review of the actual test cases. Do the test cases match to what the developer believes his or her code is going to do? Does it match to the user story that the product manager or VA wrote? Like, is everyone in agreement that this is the expected result? Yes, you do that, those outcomes, you do those conditions, that's what we're going to get. We all agree on that. Perfect. Move on. And I think that right there is some of the things where a lot of people, like, and Tom, I'm sure you would probably agree with this, like, is not done a whole heck of a lot in the past, like, almost 30 years that I've done to QA. And that what it causes is it just causes confusion and issues because people will write up bugs and then they have to investigate the bugs. And then it's like, oh, it's just the test case was written wrong. And that's the next metric that I like to look at is like the quality of the work, like how many bugs were raised based on like the quality of the test case or based on the environment. And we've talked before about root cause analysis, and I've written a book on root cause analysis too. Cheap plug on that one.
Where would people find that book?
You can find that book at LeanPub, leanpub.us, and just do a search for root cause analysis or search for my name. You will find it, and hopefully soon another book will be popping up in the next couple months.
Cool. We'll come back on when that's time. We'll have to talk about that.
Oh, of course we will. Yeah, finding the root cause of issues, at least getting those type of metrics so you can tell that story. So that's 2. How many do I get? 3?
4.
I get 4. Oh, okay. Cool. Because I can ram off a bunch. The next one.
But only the important 4, right?
Only the important 4.
I know you can rattle off a bunch, so.
So sticking with the QA theme, like the 4 metrics would be 1, yes, the test case quality, review metrics out of that, the root cause, and that there's plenty of metrics that can dig into that a bit, but you get that initial look and see where where some of the things should be looked at. The test case, like, to me, I think another metric that I think is overlooked is reusability within the test cases. How many test cases are being written and reused within other cases going forward? I've had some groups that I've worked with, some testers that I've coached and worked with, where they would have a test case, no word of a lie, would have 150 steps within the test case. And it took a long time to run it. Part of the issue is understand the reusability. Like, if you looked at most of the steps, I went through it and I broke it down, and I broke it down with the analyst in front of me. And I said, that's a test case right there. It's like, oh yeah, we wrote that test case a while ago. Okay, why aren't you reusing those steps, like kind of referencing that test case? Oh, no, we just want to rewrite everything from scratch. So understand the reusability is also going to understand the productivity of the team or the individual writing those test cases. Are they taking so much time to write the test case instead of reusing previous ones to help build out that test case? And then that stat there will also help identify issues with the test case library. Like, how are you keeping track of your test cases? How are they cataloged? How are they used? Using that to find ways to become more effective with the use of that database. And the fourth one, I think, is more towards the entire team, not just within from a QA perspective, would be, it's not pass fail, it's understanding the aging and creation of the bugs as you go through. Now, there's some agile teams where they will create their feature, they pass that particular ticket, and they throw it into another environment, which is your regression environment, where they do all their testing and do it on maybe on a phased approach or anything like that. But understanding that how many bugs are being created per day, like how many bugs are created within a week, understanding that kind of graph and that view gives you the understanding to start asking questions like, why are we finding these particular bugs? Like, is there an issue with the automation scripts that we talked in the last conversation? Is the automation strategy lacking something that we are missing stuff previously? Like, is there a way we can move things faster? Is the team just not validating what they should be validating? And I've seen an instance where everything was all hunky-dory and passing and it was great. And once we went into production, things were failing. And we found that it was unfortunate was that someone was gaming and fudging the system. They were passing test cases without actually running the test case through the code.
How does that work? No. You got to tell me how that works. I want to play that game. Not. It's
very simple. You open up the test case, you mark it as pass, and you forget about it. And that was basically what happened. And we found that there were some obvious HR and process gaps from a governance perspective that failed to catch that ahead of time. Those are, like, to me, those are the type of metrics. Those are the four main metrics I like looking at from a QA perspective.
Interesting.
If we were to look at software, Tom, I can go on forever about software, process, and all that fun business.
Yeah, so I will put you on notice. At some point, we're going to have to revisit a topic that I know we've discussed before. I'll have to dig it up. But I'll be honest with you. I heard you talk about QA metrics, and you never once talked QA. You talked testing. Everything was testing.
Oh.
So why not call that testing? So again, I'm not trying to start you down that path right now. Jeremy, if people wanted to continue the conversation, if they wanted to debate you about the nuances between what's this QA stuff and testing, and is that exactly the same thing? I don't think so.
No.
But if they wanted to debate that with you, how would they go about doing that?
They can debate with me at any time. It's great. I love conversations. They can get through to me at LinkedIn. They can do a search for Jeremy Berriault. You can also catch me on Twitter at jberriault. You can also find me on my webpage, berriaultandassociates.com. There you'll see my blogs, the QA Corner, what we talk about here, and I have another blog, Finding Value. And if there's any of those topics there you feel you want to continue the discussion or debate or ask questions on, feel free. You're more than welcome.
Thanks again, Jeremy, for bringing your wonderful QA Corner to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
I enjoy coming on.
Work entry, prioritizing without control of work entry. Prioritizing is a form of control over work entry. Tony Timble, SPaMCAST columnist, CEO of Agile Ready, and consultant, would call prioritization a guardrail for the work entry process. Unfortunately, work entry is not always controlled and is not always a controlled process, which highlights two of the few absolute truths about the world we live in. When work entry is out of control, the order in which work is completed is its priority. This is true regardless of importance or value. The thing that gets done first is effectively the top priority. The simple report or the low impact defect that you knock out and feel good about checking something off the list, you've decided that that piece of work is the single most important use of your time right now. The second truth is that when work entry is out of control, formal prioritization is a waste of time. The only potential value is that it stops you from doing the wrong stuff or the right stuff at the wrong time, but for only a short time span when you actually are prioritizing and before you abandon that plan. Formalized prioritization in this scenario might be injurious to those involved and the company as a whole by generating cognitive dissonance. You know what the right answer is, and you decide or are told to do something else. Why do teams and leaders allow out-of-control work entry processes to exist? It boils down to a few key factors, including poor leadership, lack of political power, and simple misunderstanding. The simple misunderstanding is easily seen when you consider who benefits from poor work entry practices. Those with political clout and lack the wisdom to use it well, those that chronically yell the loudest and are tolerated, your friends that have established a quid pro quo relationships. Friends might be a loose term. The simple misunderstanding is that saying yes and starting work improves throughput and value delivered. What it really does is keep everyone busy, increase costs, postpone conflict. The postponement of conflict is one of the strongest incentives to continually say yes. We're all optimists. Somehow it will work out. Prioritization is a statement about predictability. The priority order states the order the work will be delivered. The most important thing should be done first. Without control of work entry, there can be no predictability. As someone that has been the victim of poor work entry, I can state that not only was I and my teammates frustrated by constantly changing priorities, we felt disempowered. One of the principles of the Agile Manifesto states, build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and the support they need and trust them to get the job done. Shoving work into a team and constantly changing priorities is not the way to motivate individuals. Thoughts, comments, all welcome. Please feel free to reach out to us at spamcastinfo@gmail.com or leave a message at 01-440-668-5717. We look forward to the conversation. And remember, in Reread Saturday News, this week we tackle Chapter 9 of Project to Product by Mick Kirsten. Link in the show notes. Buy a copy, read along. This chapter ties 3 layers of the author's model together and exposes the third epiphany from his visit to the BMW plant that has been central to the plot of the book. The chapter puts all the parts together, but instead of relating how he connects the infrastructure, I want to focus on how important it is to generate an end-to-end view of work for any software-intensive product. Next week, more on work entry and prioritization. It's on the top of my list, unless I don't have control over my work entry. We'll also spend time with Susan Parente and her I'm Not A Scrumdamentalist column. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?